great artist and scientist Goethe once said, architecture is frozen music. And I always thought, what a beautiful idea.
Time, stop!
All artists stop time and control time, and they have from the very first little painting that someone did on a cave wall, because when you do a painting, you are taking an instant of reality and freezing it. My name is Francis Coppola. Today I would like to talk about architecture in my movie Megalopolis. Megalopolis is basically a fable and like a Roman epic, but is set in modern America. There are two principal characters who are in opposition. One is a mayor of the city named Cicero, and of course he's an evolution of the famous Latin consul and writer Cicero. And his opponent is a sort of an amalgamation of modern people, namely Robert Moses and Walter Gropius, who came here with his Bauhaus art school, and his first name is Caesar, and he is the artist-architect of the story. In the first frame, I was trying to pose those principal elements which would then go on to unveil itself in the story of Megalopolis. This is Grand Central Station. Of course, we see the Roman columns and the clock, and the issue of time is a big factor of this movie. And then, of course, we see modern times as reflected in the Art Deco tower of the Chrysler Building, which is a unique building. It was a men's club in the days when men's clubs were gentlemen sitting around reading newspapers, and I got the privilege of seeing it. It was so beautiful. It had a giant mural up there, and it was a heavenly space. And then the Chrysler Building was sold. I went recently to look at it, and whoever had bought it had dismantled the cloud tower, and I have no idea what happened to those murals. So basically juxtaposing the cloud tower with the time element in Grand Central Station and the Romanesque nature of the building. In the first frame, I was trying to pose the one exotic notion that America is essentially the historical counterpart of the Roman Republic. We have these golden images of the top of the beautiful Chrysler Building and my character at the beginning of the picture. I designed the film along with a fabulous concept artist named Dean Sheriff. And in this one, of course, it's obviously not the real Chrysler Building. This is, in movie talk, is called the volume. In other words, it's really only part of it actually built. And on the real Chrysler Building, the ledge is not really horizontal enough to be able to stand on it, so I took some liberties. But he steps out on the ledge, and you don't know why. It's the beginning of the picture. Is he going to, in some way, test his own ability as an artist? And he does, in fact, stop time.
Time, stop!
All artists stop time and control time. Filmmakers move back and forth freely in time. So that theme of the artist's natural ability to manipulate time, to move and combine time and space, I thought was fascinating. And let me just say a little bit about the settings of movies, which is, of course, a place, which is architecture. In more adventurous movies and plays, those settings might be secondarily not only the place where the action happens, but a metaphor for what's happening. And I decided in Megalopolis that I would enjoy doing that. This scene where they're walking around 5,000 feet above the ground, and obviously one slip is death. Of course, they discuss the notion of how artists stop time and everything I spoke about earlier, but at one point they do stop time together and they kiss.
Do it for me.
And the reason I wanted it to take place 5,000 feet above the ground, a certain depth, is because when you kiss someone in a serious way, it's very dangerous because your life and the life of everyone you love is about to change. I believe that when you make art, risk is an essential part of it. When you leap into the unknown, you prove that you're free because you've leapt into something that you have no idea what's going to happen. What they're doing is going to change their lives. Rome conquered half the known world. They went as far as Great Britain. But basically a lot of money came into Rome. But the money didn't go to the people. It went to providing what they called bread and circuses to keep them busy. And we all know about the Coliseum. I wanted to do the modern version of the Coliseum. It would have been logical, and my production designer wanted it to be a circular theater that she had found. And I said, no, I want to do it as a stadium. And the reason I want to do it as a stadium, because as a child, I went to Madison Square Garden to see the circus. And it was this Madison Square Garden, because there's been 4 Madison Square Gardens. And between Penn Station, which looked like the Roman baths of Caracalla, and the New York Public Library and the post office, a whole section of New York was Rome. New York and America not only based itself on Rome, it built itself to look like Rome. Penn Station was the ultimate construction, but they destroyed this magnificent landmark. It doesn't exist anymore. As with a lot of great things in New York, it's torn down for reasons that only bankers can explain. I mean, if I could rebuild Penn Station on film, I would do it. I didn't have the opportunity nor the need, but I did with this Madison Square Garden. As a kid, Madison Square Garden, that building had like 5 floors, and on the other floors, there were lots of other things. It was sort of like carnival freak shows where you saw the 2-headed woman and the snake child, or places where you could buy baby salamanders, and there were bowling alleys and bars, and it was a whole carny world of 5 floors of Madison Square Garden. And then at the top was the arena. And so I had such strong emotional ties to that experience in Madison Square Garden that I really wanted to set it there. And it was very emotional to see these things I loved in New York. Caesar, the main character, Adam Driver, he's a man of the present, but with a vision of the future.
Time, show me the future.
Both these images are 3 screens, and you're seeing some glimpses of the architecture. And to understand the architecture, let's go to Barcelona and talk about Gaudí. He made these extraordinary structures. They were stone, or they were then later reinforced concrete and other materials, steel. But Gaudí, his architecture looked as though they had grown. And I said, how do you collaborate with nature? In other words, a Gaudí vision made of something more durable than steel, which is life, which is living material. So there is this unique idea pioneered by a number of people, including Neri Oxman, a scientist at MIT, but also an architect, who proposed that architecture could be actually living plant material, and that we would like it, and that not only would it do things for us, like provide an abode that would be a dream place to live in, but we could do good things for it. So it's like living in a flower or living in a natural thing. And there's many of these forms in the architecture here that reflect an architecture that you don't build, but that you encourage to grow. This is an artist's view of what the city would look like when it was transitional. In other words, obviously, if you were going to grow a new city right in the middle of New York, there'd be a transition period where a lot of the old buildings, the Empire State Building, the Chrysler Building, are kept, but there's the beginning of these more vegetable type architectures happening. And one movie that I absolutely loved as a kid was made by H.G. Wells, who wrote the script, and the Corda Company. Was called The Shape of Things to Come. And you see them build this world of the future. But, it takes time to build a world of the future, so that when you get to the future, it's all about their grandchildren. So I said, when I do it in my future movie, I want there to be some amazing new architectural medium or invention, which he invented, which lets you go build a world of the future fast enough that you don't have to be your own grandchildren in the story. And then, as these things work in your mind in the script, it began to be this material called megalon, and that was sort of a material that was not dissimilar to what Neri Oxman, that was the sort of scientific advisor of this, called mediated material. Rather than be built, we can work on an atomic level, nature and humanity as a collaboration, liking each other. And I saw that whatever world I wanted to present for people in Megalopolis, you had to say, well, I like to live there, and maybe I'm nuts, but I'd love to live in a flower, especially one that liked me.